If you didn't know, Riot made a change about a year ago to ranked that really dramatically changes the way that they deal with a player who's returned from a break of not playing the game. And I was concerned at the time when I saw this that, they didn't tell us how many days of a break it actually was before your MMR and your matchmaking would get really shifted based on the fact that you weren't playing every single day constantly. And so I said at the time, I get this if you've been gone for 2 weeks or you've been gone for, for a month or something like that. I get that, for an extended period of time, maybe 10 days plus, I could understand that players are going to come back. They're going to be rusty to the game, maybe matching them a division or two below where they would have been had they kept playing, even though they haven't lost, is going to create fairer matches. And even if they're just winning 50-50, while they're rusty at a couple of divisions lower, that's going to signal to the MMR system that, hey, this person is now only winning 50% of their games 2 or 3 divisions below them. So it's going to pull them down because they are actually rusty, and that's an indicator of that. But it has some problems with it. And I noted at the time, I'm really concerned about if this affects short breaks, like if I don't play for 3 or 4 days or something like that. Because I think that there are a lot of players who have a different range of experiences with coming back to the game and being rusty. And some players can take a 2-week break and come back to the game and play the exact same way they were playing before they left. And other players really can't do anything other than play daily. Otherwise, they'll be really rusty. If they, take even so much as a 2-day break, they'll come back and they'll be rusty for at least a couple of games. So it really depends on the person. But obviously, for the matchmaking system, you don't really know how each person experiences rust differently. So if they want to implement something like this, they would have to have some sort of universal system. But I think that the number is important, right? Because the number of days is important, because if it's 10 plus days, fine, pretty understandable. If it's kicking in and punishing you for just not playing daily, even though you haven't really gotten rusty and haven't decayed, that is where I think that there's a problem with this system. So let's talk about what this system is, whether it actually exists or not, because that's kind of a question. And what I'm experiencing now after having played with this change, being in the game for a year. So if you didn't know, like this says here, Riot Froxon, who's on the the balance team that pushes the patch notes, said that in 14.16 we'll be making several improvements to matchmaking and return to ranked experience. We've heard a lot of discussions about red and blue side balance. This is back when that was going on, especially at the start of the season. We've been investigating it deeply and have found some optimizations. Undoubtedly, there's the camera angle balance changes and differences in the construction of the map itself side by side. We shipped some changes in 14.4 to the default camera angle on red side and noticed some improvement, but there's still more to do. Between better team balance, we have identified some improvements to how individual matches are balanced, especially at the top of the ladder, where there are scarce player populations and difficulty in making fair matches. We hope to see more fair matches and a reduction to players repeatedly ending up on the same side. Better side balancing. We're also better optimizing how teams are balanced by side. This will be most notable in high MMR. So this was when they were having problems where the rank 1 player was always ending up on blue side and stuff like that, or red side or whatever it was. Better off-roll balance. We've also identified some optimizations that can improve the matchmaking of off-rolls and secondaries by side that don't dramatically increase queue time. So this was also around the time when they tried to create better autofill parity and secondary roll parity in the game. And finally, 4, which is what we're focused on, better return to ranked experience for returning players. Returning players often take some time to shake off the rust and get back into form. We're being a bit more aggressive with how ranked and skill will decay when taking a break from the game, so that in return, matches aren't repeatedly getting smashed. So what they're saying here is essentially, if you go on a break and we think that you're rusty, we're going to artificially lower your MMR because of the fact that not because you lost, but just because you're not playing for a little while. And we're not doing it necessarily through the decay system, which is transparent. If I don't play for 2 weeks in Masters Plus, I'm going to decay, but at least I know that I'm going to decay, right? And the other thing about decay is, although that's changed too, is generally speaking, in theory, when you decay, your MMR should actually stay the same, but your LP should go way down, although that's a topic for another day. But the gist of this is that they're saying that if a player's taken a break and they're returning, they need time to shake off the rust. So we're going to lower their matchmaking rating so that the matchmaking is more fair and that they're not just getting thrown onto a team at their peak rank and getting smashed. Understandable, but they have to define and be good at picking the definition of what is a long enough break that they're a returning player who needs to shake off rust. And the issue that I've had is over the past year, I have had a lot of experiences with needing to take a break with kids and stuff like that now. I've needed to take breaks, a month. I decayed. First time that's happened to me. I had a break, all the time where I'm taking 3 days not playing, 4 days not playing, 5 days not playing, whatever. So there's just a bunch of times where I'm taking a break this season. And interestingly, right, I have experienced that when I come back, I could be Masters 200 LP, Masters 300 LP, and when I come back from having played for even just 4 or 5 days, I'm getting thrown into like all diamond lobbies or like really, really low master diamond lobbies. Now, I get that there is always going to be in low masters some, intermixing between like every once in a while you'll get a diamond player in the game, whatever. Sometimes somebody will be a smurf and they'll have really high MMR. You'll get a diamond player here or there who's actually like a master player with high MMR. But I want to show you my last game and talk about what I think is going on here. Because what I worried about when I first read this a year ago is they're going to punish people if they're not playing the game daily. And that's what I'm experiencing, because this last match that I played right here, I last played 2 days ago. Okay, I've been playing a couple of games here a day, and I last played 2 days ago, which means that I didn't play yesterday. I have a 1 day gap between my last game. So I, played the day before yesterday, didn't play yesterday, played my first game today. This match was, because it's also time dependent. This was at a Saturday at 11:30 in the morning. Okay, so this is like not peak hours. Peak hours would be Saturday at like 6 p.m. As opposed to 11:30. But 11:30 is not that early. People are awake and playing the game, so there should be plenty of players for matchmaking to draw from. I was sitting at Masters 250 LP before I won this game. I won, by the way, so it's not just that I'm salty. My MMR, we can look here, is not in a bad state. For the last, this is a month and a half since the beginning of October, my MMR has been, or my rank and my MMR have been steadily climbing back up. And so this isn't a case where like recently I lost a lot of MMR and that's why I'm like angling down and getting some lower lobbies. I've basically been, since this point, I did go down from 400 LP here, but that was, 3 months ago. And then ever since a month and a half ago, I've been up and up and up. So my MMR is not in a state where, I should be nosediving and expecting lower lobbies or anything like that. The only thing that I can say about what's going on here is this is another game where I notice, I didn't play yesterday. I come back and the matchmaking quality is terrible. And so what we had here is we had a Diamond 1 player, an Emerald 1 player, a Diamond 1 player, a Diamond 3 player, and another Diamond 1 player in a game where I was Masters 250 LP on an upward trajectory with my MMR. It makes absolutely no sense. Now, so another thing I want to state about the way that Master Games works is, generally speaking, when you start to get to like 150 LP, 200 LP, certainly by 250 LP, you kind of stop getting as many diamond players in your games, very few and far between. And so we can even go back, right, because this is a game where, we can call this guy whatever, we can say 5 out of the 10 players are below masters, right? We can go back as a baseline and look at some of my other games. So what about the game I played two days ago or whatever? 10 players in masters. What about this game? 9 players in masters, 1 in grandmaster. Right, what about this one? We had 1 Diamond 1 player, but other than that, 9 master players. This guy is legitimately a Diamond 1 player. He's been Masters before, but this guy's legitimately a Diamond 1 player, not a Smurf or anything like that. But this is what I would expect. Like 3 games, we had 1 Diamond player and 1 GM player in 3 games. right? That's about what I would expect out of normal matchmaking. I mean, we could go back further to prove my point, but you get the idea. Here's another one that is 8 master players, 1 GM player, and 1 level 40, Smurf account that's shot up to Diamond 3 with the 60% win rate. So generally speaking, this is the type of matchmaking that you would expect. Occasionally there's 1 diamond player. Half the time it's because that diamond player is either like very high diamond 1 and they're very close to masters, they've been masters before, or they're a smurf who's like very low level 30 to 60, something like that, with an insane win rate or whatever. So you understand they're actually basically all master players, whatever. So I just want to be clear that when you get to 200 LP, let alone 250, normally matchmaking for a game at this level should be almost all master players, like 80, 90%. So to have 50% of the players be below masters, one of them being emerald, although this is actually kind of okay because this guy's going to be the one smurf because he's all the way down in emerald. That's not normal. Okay. And it comes after I took this just 1 day break between playing. So I want to put this into perspective too, because it would be one thing if, that's just, kind of weird matchmaking because, these guys are probably a bunch of Smurfs. Maybe it was like a Smurf skew game that you were thrown into, whatever. But it's not, because this Graves is a Diamond 1 player with 1,060 games played. He's Diamond 1, 28 LP. He's not exactly that close to being in Masters or anything like that. He did peak in Masters previously before, like a lot of these players have. He did get to Masters one time at this season, but this guy is like not the type of player necessarily that you would expect to see. But okay, maybe that guy's D1. It's not that big of a deal, right? So that's the first player we're looking at. Okay, then we have the Talia, who's probably actually just a Smurf account. It's not a Smurf account, but it's a returning to ranked player. So here we've got another player who's a returning to ranked player. They ended the last 2 splits that they played, and these were the last 2 splits in general. They ended the last 2 Masters, and they're coming back for the first time. They're 7-3. They've just been placed into Emerald 1. They're just returning. In fact, actually, they haven't even played these 10 games within the last 2 months. They only played these 2 games, including the one with me. They only played these 2 games in the last 2 months because this cuts off at 2 months. So, and these are normals. So they have not, so they went 2-0, in the last 2 months, but they actually were 5-3, way earlier in the season. So this is like somebody's, I don't know, either returning to the game or somebody's, alt account or something. Pretty high level for an alt account, but it's still possible, especially for players this high up, play a lot. On the other team, we have another Diamond 1 player with 1,400 games played. So this is another guy who's like very legitimately Diamond 1, not a Masters player. In fact, this player came close, to be fair, and he is Diamond 1, but has never hit Masters before. And, then we've got this guy who is in Diamond 3. Oh, I skipped this guy. This guy's another player in Diamond 1. I guess this guy is a Smurf, to be fair, as well, right? This guy is level 79. He's Diamond 1 with a 65% win rate. He actually peaked Grandmaster 600 LP earlier on this account. I mean, that's a whole nother topic to get into. Obviously, this guy pulled a slingshot, got way past his peak, and is now on his way back down. So that's a whole nother problem. We'll save this guy for the end, and I'll talk about another issue with that. But this guy technically is Smurf, I guess, but terrible trajectory. He shouldn't be in this game either, to be fair. But we'll save him for the end because that's a whole nother problem and a whole unique case. This guy also a Smurf, level 54. Not an insane win rate here at 54%, but obviously enough that on 200 games, on a fresh account, shooting all the way up to D1. Understandable. Oh, this is another slingshotter. Okay, so there's a lot of complicated shenanigans in terms I'm throwing around here. So let me try to get back to basics here and straighten this all out. Essentially, 1 year ago, Froxon said, we're going to make a change to the game where when you return to the game from a break, however long that means, you're going to see a decrease in your MMR. That makes matchmaking more fair while you're rusty. Should be fine if implemented correctly, but I'm afraid that this is a harsh penalty that applies as long as you're not playing the game daily. This is essentially a way to secretly subvert the decay system by making people feel like, okay, I cannot play the game for 2 weeks and I'm fine and I'm not going to decay, or my, LP and stuff like that will only go down. My MMR will only go down if I, don't play for like 2 weeks. But that's not actually what happens. Actually, your MMR is not even supposed to go down, like I said before. But we have a lot of problems with this. Number one, it makes decay not as good as it sounds, because I decayed earlier this year in March. I took a fat decay. When I had first gotten to Challenger at the beginning of this year at like 600 and something LP, 660 LP, I went on a family vacation for a month. And when I went on a family vacation for a month, I had the option at the end of the vacation of playing like 5 games of Yumi from like a really old crappy laptop that I was probably going to lose, but preventing myself from decaying, and I'd only lose like 100 LP even if I lost every game. But I could alternatively lose like 400 LP through decay, but when you decay, your MMR isn't supposed to go down. So I decided to decay. The problem is that my MMR went down anyways, because even though rank decay isn't supposed to take your MMR down, this change from last year meant that because I hadn't played in a month, when I came back, not only was I 400 LP lower at like Master 0 LP, but I was also, my MMR was down in like Diamond and Masters. And so now all of a sudden I'm coming back, I'm rusty, and my MMR is tanked and my rank is tanked. And so it took a huge amount of time to recover. I probably should have instantly quit my main account and switched to a fresh account when that happened. But I didn't realize that, and I'm not really the type of player that switches, off of my main account. I pretty much play all my ranked games on my main account. So I'm not really the person who goes back and forth, from one account to another. Next season, especially because of changes like this, I probably will just be bouncing from account to account, which is why a lot of other high elo players do that. So a couple of issues here. When you decay, your MMR shouldn't go down. But if you don't play for 3 weeks or a month, of course, when you decay, your MMR is going to go down because of this fourth point here, which is that when players return, we're going to be a bit more aggressive, which means they were already doing this, by the way, because they're being a bit more aggressive with how rank and skill will decay when taking a break from the game, so that in return matches, players aren't repeatedly getting smashed, blah, 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 blah. So, number one, rank decay doesn't work like it used to, because your MMR is actually going to go down anyways because of this change. Number two, they never specified how long you need to not play the game for. So the issue here is that you think that you're safe as long as you've banked enough games for decay. So you think if you've played your 14 decay games or something like that, you're good for 2 weeks, but you're not actually good for 2 weeks. Because if you ever take a break from this game for more than a day, you will return to worse matchmaking as a result of that. Now, there's an argument to be made, and I did win this game very easily. In fact, we made their support AFK and then won in 15 minutes or less, actually. I think we won the game in like 7 minutes or something, because I think they FF'd in 7 minutes. Yeah, it was a 7 minute and 36 second game. Their support AFK'd. Well, we went 5-1-1 in bot lane, and our top side was doing well as well. So, what was the game score? It doesn't really matter. But the point is, this game wasn't balanced at all. I don't even care that I won. This is just a weird way for the rank system to work and a huge problem. So, okay, so number one, we understand that rank decay doesn't work like they're claiming it does. Number two, if you take a break for like a couple of days or even maybe a day, your matchmaking quality will drop. Number three is people will counter argument, this idea and say, well, it should be easy for you to win like you did in your game because you're playing against a bunch of diamond players or players who you think don't deserve to be in your lobby. So just win the game and it'll be fine, and your MMR will go back and everything will be fine. which is sort of true because it is easier to win versus these players than versus players of your same rank. However, everybody knows this. There's an adjustment that has to occur where you have to play differently at different ranks. If you played exactly like you would in a challenger lobby, in a bronze lobby, well, I'm not going to say you would lose. You'd probably just win through pure mechanics or whatever. But the best way to win as many games as possible in gold is not the best way to win as many games as possible in challenger. I'm sorry, it's not. The reality is that good solo queue players understand that you have to be adaptable at different ranks to the way that different people play and the way that your teammates play. So you might be able to get more aggressive in a situation you would know in Masters. I can't get as aggressive with their bot lane here because I know they're going to play it properly. Whereas if I'm in gold, it's a kill angle in the same exact situation because I know their bot lane isn't going to play it correctly. So I can get more aggressive because of that. On the other hand, sometimes you have to dial back your aggression because if you're trying to force a play that your teammates have to play well, your teammates aren't going to play that situation out correctly or as well as you would expect them to in gold. And so you have to dial back your aggression when you're relying on your teammates to do things. So you play the game a little bit differently and can get away with different things when you're in gold versus when you're in emerald versus when you're in masters. I think everybody knows this by now. So as a result, even a small change, like playing with a bunch of diamond players all of a sudden, when you don't expect it and you've been playing with master players for a while, is a good way to throw off the way that you're playing. Because everybody's probably had these games where you've been playing fine for a week, and then all of a sudden, you get one of these games where you and your team just aren't on the same page at all, you don't click, everything goes wrong. You didn't make the worst decisions in the world. Maybe they weren't perfect or you made your mistakes, sure. But you have a game that looks like you had like this generationally bad game. And it was just because there were so many misunderstanding after misunderstanding with your teammates where the way that you view the game just doesn't line up with the way your teammates view the game. And so you try to play aggressively and it's just not clicking the way that you want to play the game with your AD carry, with your teammates or whatever. So as a player who doesn't smurf a lot, actually, I am a player who struggles with playing with D2 and D3 players. I think they play the game absolutely terribly. I can't understand for the life of me what they're thinking. And so if I'm randomly dropped into a D3 game, I'm actually less likely to win. If I'm just for one game, I'm randomly dropped in a D3 game, I'm actually less likely to win than I am in a Masters game. Very counterintuitive, but I've experienced this many, many times. Yet, if I played in Diamond for enough games, if I played there for enough games where I reacclimated to how people play at that rank, then I would be fine, right? I'd start winning a bunch of games very easily. I just play a little bit more conservatively when I need to and a little bit more aggressive when I need to. I change my play style and what I'm looking for, and eventually I would adapt to the rank and climb back to where I belong, because adaptability at different ranks along the way is the mark of a good player, not just knowing to make the right decisions or how to execute on them. So don't take players and randomly drop them up or down a rank like a bunch. It's very disruptive because you're used to playing around your teammates and playing around the way that the enemy can play the game. And if you're used to that for 100 games and then all of a sudden you take a 3-day or 5-day break and then you're plopped down into a middle diamond lobby or something like that, and you have no idea how anyone's playing, and I could have very easily gotten unlucky in this game, especially if certain players were flipped around. It seems like all of the terrible diamond players were on their team and all of the good ones were on my team. So that may have just been luck of the draw. It may have been, purposeful by the matchmaking. But whatever the case may be, I could have totally gotten unlucky in this game, which is why I'm upset about it. Regardless, it's just bad matchmaking. If I'm not used to the way that these people want to play, I could have easily just had some unlucky plays that would have worked with Master 250 LP plus teammates, but didn't work in a Diamond lobby. And so now all of a sudden I'm losing a game in Diamond. And now because I took a 1-day break from the game, I go from having a pretty successful run, climbing back up towards, 200, 300, 400 LP. Now all of a sudden I'm shooting my MMR in the foot because I took a 1-day break. If I get unlucky and lose that game in Diamond MMR, now my MMR is shot because I'm at 250 LP and I'm losing a game in a Diamond MMR game. And now all of a sudden I'm loss streaking down to Diamond. So I'm lucky I won this game, but this is not healthy matchmaking. It's not good matchmaking. Whatever they did here with this post from Froxon and this point 4 about this better return to ranked experience, the number of days that it takes to activate is simply screwed up. It needs to be like 10 plus days. I think it would be more fair and transparent to players if they just either outright came out and said it, or if they tie it to the decay system. So for example, it doesn't kick in for 14 plus days if you're in Masters Plus, and maybe, you know, the 28-day month for Diamond players, and then maybe doesn't affect, or I don't know how they would implement it below Diamond, but obviously, because there's no decay there, so it's just a hidden thing that would shoot every Emerald and below player in the foot. Obviously, this happens to Gold players as well. It's actually the same concept. So let's say you're a Gold player, and you're maybe more of a casual to the game, so you don't play as much actually. And you, maybe because of that, you actually have a harder time with Rust when you come back to the game. But, you know, anyways, you're a Gold player and you take a week break from the game. There's no decay because you don't even know what decay is in Gold because it doesn't exist there and you've never had to deal with it. So you don't even think about anything like that. You don't play for a week, which you are told by the rank system is totally fine. But then you come back after having not played in a week and all of a sudden you're playing a much lower quality game. This is other, you know, you get matched into a silver lobby and all of a sudden the stuff you're used to doing in gold isn't working anymore because you're actually playing in silver randomly for this one match, and now you're screwed. And you may lose that game and it may take your MMR down, whereas you may have won a game with the players you're used to playing with in gold. So it's not ideal. It's not ideal. The other thing is that this can actually have a pretty negative impact on the returning player themselves. Obviously that's true here, but I mean, even someone who's returning from, let's say, like a long break, sure, they're going to be a bit rusty and maybe have a hard time themselves, but they're basically saying we think that it's better to give returning players these lower MMR lobbies so that they have more fair matchmaking and a better chance to win. And one of the reasons why you would want to do that is to retain that player that's coming back to the game. Like this Talia, for example, was someone who hadn't played in 2 months and is coming back to the game. Where was he? Right? So let's take that Talia player as an example. Basically, when Riot sees that this Talia player is coming back to the game, they want to retain this guy. So here we have a guy who's level 447. I don't know if it's his main account, but it probably is. And he's played for seasons and seasons and seasons in the past. Since season 6, he's played ranked every single split, every single year, it looks like. But this year, he's only played, in the big 2025, he's played 10 games all year, right? So this is the type of player Riot desperately wants back. You have a returning player who's played every year since season 6, but he's only played 10 games this year. And now he's returning at the end of the season, last month or two, to play your game. You want to retain this player. So what Riot's saying here is, well, if we lower the MMR of his games because he's a returning player, he has a better shot of performing okay. And because he doesn't get beat up on by high MMR players from the rank he used to be, he's more likely to stay around. And while maybe that's true, it's counterbalanced by the fact that if the game quality and the mistakes that are being made by his teammates feels really low and really bad, that might actually counteract that, because while it's true he has a better shot of playing okay even though he's rusty against worse players, his team is going to feel a lot worse than he remembers. And that's not necessarily going to be the type of thing that keeps somebody around. So I don't know. This is just me, and I'm a very high elo skewed player, so my perspective on this might not be the same as a returning gold player. But my perspective is that if I was 400 LP and I go away for a month, I would rather come back and I'm still 400 LP MMR, and I have a couple of bad games while I'm derusting where I know that I lost because it was my fault. It is disruptive in those couple of games, but I get back into the game and into the swing of things, and things are fine. I would much rather have that than return to a game that's suddenly a diamond game after I was Masters 400 LP, and now my teammates are significantly worse and I'm worse So now my teammates suck and don't know how to play the game because we're playing a full rank below where I was because I took a month-long break. That doesn't feel better to me. I'm much more likely, now I'm going to keep playing League, right? But I feel like I would be much more likely to say, hey, League sucks when I return to it. And then say, okay, I'm going back to not playing League anymore. I mean, I guess it depends. If you take a month-long vacation, but you're always intending to return to League, you're going to keep playing no matter what. But if you're a player who's maybe more, I don't know why this Talia left all of this year, but let's say you actually quit the game, but then you decide to come back and give it a shot. If your teammates are playing a rank below where you're used to them playing at, that is not likely to retain that player. That might actually be more likely to get that player to quit again and then never come back. So I don't know that it's even a good retainment strategy for keeping players around to match games like this. It's just the whole system is a complete disaster. Now, I will say, on top of this, that I went through the patch 14.16 and then the patch 14.17 notes based on what was said here in this tweet, and they did not mention this fourth change at all in the patch notes. So it's possible that this change doesn't even exist in the game, that it was just never implemented, and that I had a weird match, after coming back from a day, and that I'm hallucinating all of this. And the other time when I played, didn't play for 6 days and then came back to really weird diamond matchmaking, and the time when I was gone for a month and then came back to weird diamond matchmaking, that those are just coincidences and that they didn't implement this in the game. But I'm convinced at this point, and I finally have, a recent example of it that I can show you guys now, so that's why I'm saying something. I think Riot needs to take a look at fixing this, because I don't think that this is an appropriate way to match games at all. Now, one other thing that we could mention about matchmaking while we're here is on the topic of actually same thing. We got a kind of a dual example in this game. So let me see here. I talked about slingshotting, and this is a concept I may have talked about before, but I want to really focus it in here while we're talking about these other matchmaking issues, because slingshotting is a gigantic problem, especially for masters. So let's take a look. It was the Bard and it was the Rengar. So these two players on the other team are what I would consider slingshotting players. Slingshotting players are basically when a player creates a new account, and because they're playing at a much lower rank than they usually would be playing at, they're smurfing and they're able to win a huge percentage of their games. So this Bard comes in, and we can even do, oh, it's a little bit strange. Okay, it's a little bit strange here as well. Kind of confusing actually about what's going on with the Bard. Let me look at the tier graph. This Bard actually might be a different case scenario altogether. Okay, this Bard is actually, interestingly enough, not a slingshot account, although it looks like one. But the Rengar probably is. So let's take a look at the Rengar. Yeah, the Rengar is a slingshot account. So a slingshot account is an account where somebody creates a Smurf account, and because they're playing on a Smurf account, they're able to win a high percentage of their games. And so this Rengar, for example, rolled into Diamond 1 here where he peaked with a 60% win rate. I know it says he has a 54% win rate right now, but if we look at his last 40 games, he went 16 and 24. So if we took away 16 and 24 from here, he probably would have rolled into D1 with something like a 60% win rate. Now, the honest to God truth is that no matter what rank you are, when you create a new account and you start playing versus people, you could be a plat player, and when you start rolling through silver players, you're probably going to win 60% of your games versus silver players. So you win 60% of your games, 70% of your games, whatever. But how does Riot know whether you're winning 60% of your games to Masters or whether you're winning 60% of your games to Plat? It doesn't. So what it does is you just continue to increase and increase and increase. But then what happens is let's say that you're that Plat player, you might get to, let's say you were peaked at Plat 1 before on your main account. Like that's where you're usually stuck. Well, you might slingshot past that a little bit. So on an account where you're fresh account, you're winning 60% of your games the whole way up, you might slingshot past that easily into Emerald 4, into Emerald 3, into Emerald 2. But once you get a little bit too high up, you just stop winning games because you're no longer able to win 60% of your games. and you're no longer being carried by LP gains from a fresh account where you're gaining, plus 30, minus 10. You're no longer being carried by high MMR from a high win rate, and you start picking up some losses. And all of a sudden, your match history goes from 60% to 50% recently, and then it goes to like 40%. Because what ends up happening here, like you see with this Rengar, is you come into D1 with a 60% win rate, and you're not actually capable of winning games in D1, or at least, 50% of your games or whatever. So you come in and on 60 games, you win 47% after you've just won 60% your first, 100 games. So all of a sudden you go from 60% on your first 80 games or whatever to now in your last 60 games, you're winning 47%. So obviously we know, and even with just normal LP gains and losses, but also the MMR system knows that this guy is higher than he should be. And so he peaks in D1 and he'll never see it again unless he makes a new account. And then he starts going down to where his actual rank is. So this Rengar, for example, I would estimate is like a D4 or a D3 player, basically like a low diamond player. But this guy shot up nearly all the way to Masters just because he created a fresh account that's level 54 and he won 60% of his games, to Diamond 1. But, it's the same thing with the Plat player. The Plat player wins 60% of their games versus Silver and Gold players, all the way up to, to Emerald or whatever. Maybe they slow down and are only winning 55% when they're playing in their regular rank of Plat. And then they get into Emerald with great MMR, and then they just start losing games because they can't actually keep up against high Emerald players or Diamond players, and they start to go back down. So what I call these slingshotting accounts, or the slingshot effect, is the fact that in the current rank system, for a little while, you will overshoot the rank that you should actually be placed at, your appropriate rank where you're able to win 50% of your games. You'll overshoot it a little bit, and then you'll start to lose more than 50% and go back down to your main rank. So maybe you'll get a couple of divisions higher, maybe a rank higher, but then eventually over time you'll start to go back down to your appropriate rank. And that's what's happened with this Rengar's account. Now, I thought it's what's happening with this Bard's account because he went to 600 LP and now he's all the way back at D140 LP, but that's actually not the case. What's going on with this Bard's account is that this Bard actually got to 600 LP, and then we can see here he decayed. The reason why we know he decayed is because he went down to D175 LP, because decay, when you go out of Masters, will always put you at D175 LP, and then he stayed stuck there without playing any games for a long time until he went down to exactly D275 LP, which is exactly where it puts you if you decay out of D1, having not played for a month in Diamond. The dates also line up with that, and then his match history cuts off here, which means he's only played these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games in the last 2 months. So we know that he's going to decay in, GM 600 LP down to D1 if he's only played these, and this is all in the last day. We know that he would have decayed if he has only played these ranked games, these 9 ranked games yesterday in the last 2 months. So for those reasons, this Bard looked like he's shot up to 600 LP, but decayed all the way down to Diamond, he slingshotted to 600, then went down to Diamond. But in actuality, this player, it is a Smurf account, got to 600 LP, let the account decay, now it's back down. Another interesting kind of little note about this, though, is it is interesting that I haven't played for a day. The Bard hasn't played, very much in the last 2 months. And same thing with the Talia. The Talia hasn't played enough games to fill out his match history in the last 2 months. So he hasn't played 20 games in the last 2 months. Again, not usual. So I would say that there's something going on with the matchmaking here where it almost looks like this matchmaking is like specifically designed, like this game is filled with people who haven't played in a while. I'm kind of curious now if we pull up like the Rengar, did Rengar play like yesterday? Did all these other players play yesterday, or do all of these players have a big gap? No, he did, because he was in this game 1 hour ago and then played 14 hours before, which would have been yesterday. So this guy definitely did play, he did play yesterday. I don't know. It's just obviously something is weird about the matchmaking in this game. And that's what I think it is this tweet from Froxon. Even though they didn't mention in the patch notes, it got put into the game, obviously, based on my experience, and that's what ended up happening with this game. Sometimes, even if you don't play for as little as one day, if you're not a daily player, Riot's going to punish you, unfortunately, with these kind of weird matchmaking, slightly lower MMR games. Fine if you can win them, it'll go back to normal. I'm sure that once I play a few games today, with 270, maybe 290 LP, I'm obviously going to get back into master lobbies or whatever, but just a really weird situation. I also wonder two other things. Could this be intentionally exploited, as always, right? Like, let's say that you are a player who is used to playing in diamond games, and so you are able to consistently win more in diamond because you're good at smurfing through that rank. Could you intentionally, play day on, day off, day on, day off, so that you're always getting lower games? Let's say that you're rank 1. Notoriously, rank 1 has a problem with climbing because it's very difficult to climb when you're rank 1 because you always gain less MMR for a win than a loss because everyone that you're beating is all lower than you. And so, there's no one above you to beat and gain MMR off of. So it's very hard to keep climbing once you're rank 1. But what if you played day on, day off, day on, day off? If you did something like that and you kind of lowered the MMR of the games that you were playing in, I mean, maybe it's not a good strategy. I'm just throwing this out there, but maybe because you'd get to play versus lower players, you'd have an easier time winning and you'd just be able to win more of your games or something like that. It might be a way for rank 1 to abuse this system. Obviously, putting something like this in the game that could be abused to change the rank that you're playing against over the course of only a day of not playing seems like a disaster waiting to happen. So they should figure out how to fix this, because this should be something that, like I said, applies after 10 days or 14 days, not something that you start to see after a couple of days of not playing ranked. I think this is a way to manipulate people into being daily players, which I get why they want to do that for player retention as well, but I think it's another kind of unethical practice. I think that, as the league player base gets older and older, like I mentioned, I have a child now, and many of us are getting older. We don't have time to necessarily do that. And the decay system says it's okay. You can spend one weekend playing 14, games and bank those all up for the next week or the next 2 weeks. And then you don't have to play it all for the next 2 weeks. So if you want to take a Christmas vacation or something like that, you're good to do that. If you want to, take a family vacation, if you've got to focus on work, you can bank those games and then quit League for a couple of weeks. With the expectation that if you're playing at a high level in Masters Plus, where the game is very competitive, that you return to play an average of 1 game a day, again for 2 weeks until at least you build those banked games back up again. But this just feels like it's punitive too early. Like, you have to be a daily player to continue playing at the same rank that you've earned. Otherwise, you're going to be punished with kind of lower quality, like lower rank matchmaking. And I think that that's bad. Another problem here, obviously, based on my experience, I believe that this is in the game 100%. Obviously, Froxon tweeted it, so that should be some evidence that it's in the game. But it is a bit weird that it's in the patch notes, or not in the patch notes. Like I mentioned, that may mean that it's not in the game and that I'm just experiencing a weird one-off game, or maybe I've experienced a couple this year. And that could be the case. I'm not going to rule that out completely because we don't know 100%, but I'm telling you, based on a lot of League experience, at the top of the ladder, that this is what's going on. I would say that them not putting it in the patch notes is another problem in and of itself. I think it's rather deceptive that they have this only listed as a change on a tweet and that it didn't make it into the patch notes like the other changes. Now, maybe, again, that means that they just didn't put it in the game, and I'm cuckoo. But they got to put major changes like this to the system into the patch notes. Otherwise, they're manipulating people kind of secretively, and I really hate that. So that's not good either. So I wish Riot was more transparent about what's going on and the changes here as well. And I think that there was one other thing that I was going to say, but I'm kind of blanking on it now. Let me see here if I can jog my memory by looking at any of this stuff. I don't know. Just a weird game, weird matchmaking. Riot, please fix. Oh, I remember the one thing. One other ranked thing that is a big problem that's sort of related to this in a way, but not really, is maybe I should make a whole nother video about it, but I'll just mention it here at the end while we're talking about a lot of problems going on right now. Then the whole no preseason thing, I kind of have mixed feelings about it, right? And I said this last year, but one of the other purposes that the preseason served was that it provided players a break over the holidays, over Thanksgiving and over Christmas. And I think that that was very healthy for the game for a lot of reasons. One, I found myself wanting to spend more and more time, even though the end of the season is coming up and I'm in a really bad spot in solo queue. I desperately want to get back to Challenger, although I don't think it's going to be possible for me by the end of the year. I desperately want to get back to at least GM since I ended GM last season. And ending GM since it's higher LP threshold now this year would mean that I've made some progress and gained some LP. It would be a really disappointing year for me to have hit Challenger 660 LP at the beginning of the year and then to have just fallen off and ended lower than I ended last year. So I feel like I want to at least end GM higher than I ended last year, and keep that upward trajectory going. And I think that I do have a good shot at ending GM, even though, I still need to gain another 130, 140 LP here. I think I have a good shot of doing that. However, like I was saying, even though I have that as a really strong goal, I'm wanting to go play top lane. I'm wanting to go play AD carry and learn some other champions and some other roles just for fun. Because I play a lot of League and I play a lot of Braum, and I love Braum. But everybody wants to play, how's it feel? Oh, I see this guy playing this in a YouTube video or on a stream. I want to go try this champion, or, I haven't played this champion in a really long time. It'd be really fun to get a game in on that champion. And as someone who mostly plays pretty much only ranked, preseason was a time to do that, where I could go and play a bunch of different stuff, even if it was on another account, because I knew that I wasn't really being outpaced very much by other people who are also taking a break, also trying builds, trying new item and rune setups, trying to adapt to the new changes that were implemented in the game, right? We had time to learn the meta and come up with some new strategies for the meta for the start of the year. So there's advantages and disadvantages to not having preseason, but I think the biggest one for me as I'm getting older is, and I said this last year, not having this break over Thanksgiving and Christmas is just bad for the game and for people's health and for family and stuff like that. I think that it was very healthy that there was a 1 or 2 month break every year where a lot of people played a lot less ranked, got outside, touched some grass or some snow, could go on those natural holidays here in the US at least with family like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then could come back without having to worry about decay, without having to worry about their MMR going down because of the system that we've just talked about in this video. I feel like now I'm going on family vacation for 2 weeks for Christmas. I feel like now I'm not going to play any League during that time. I'm also going to be gone out of state. I feel like that is now going to hurt me and my ranked climb. Same thing last year. That's going to hurt me in my ranked climb because I'm not able to play daily during that time. But I'm just not going to do that, and I'm not going to be able to, and a lot of people aren't going to be able to. And it just feels like having a break around Thanksgiving or Christmas or a preseason that accomplished that is a healthy thing for the game and for people. So I don't really like that there is no break anymore, that it is just go, 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 go constantly, and that you are really punished for taking so much as a day off, even though the decay system doesn't punish you for that. And that's another example of that, is them removing the preseason over the holidays. And not only removing the preseason over the holidays, but the ranked season also used to end November 8th to 11th, roughly speaking. It ended on a bunch of different days, but about that time frame. So before the beginning of November, it would have ended already. It ended before Thanksgiving because Thanksgiving is the end of November. So what that meant was that all of your grinding, if you wanted to like play a lot of League for a month straight before the end of the season, you could do that before before it was the holiday season. Now that doesn't exist anymore. So let's say you are in a situation like I'm in, like I've talked about here, where, hey, I'd like to grind back to Challenger for the end of the season, but I can't because the last month or two of the season is Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I'm going to be prioritizing family, obviously. So because of that, there's no time. There's no time to grind back, to Challenger in any sort of realistic way, unless I just pop off and win 70% of my games out of nowhere. I'm just not going to be able to get there because the last month of the season is Thanksgiving and Christmas instead of a time period where people are actually free to grind. So I don't necessarily know that that's good for the game either. So even if you say, okay, well, we don't want to have this big long preseason, we like having ranked just constantly going, why not end the season in March or something? I don't know, or like any other time, like end the season in the middle of the summer or something like that, so that people who are in school or something like that. I mean, that would be the ideal time. There's no holiday. People are out of school for the beginning and the end of the season, so there's a ton of people playing because it's during the summer. Like, that is a great time to start and end the season. So in order to do that, they'd obviously need to do so. And I'm not saying they should necessarily do this year, and I'm not saying they should extend the season this year just so I can get back to Challenger, I swear. It's more about the holidays thing. But, obviously, how would you change it to then? You just run one season until, the middle of summer, till May or whatever. And then you run it to May or June or wherever you want to run it. And you have one season that's a little bit longer. That doesn't mean you can't make changes to the game too. If you've got an extra half of a year to run a season, you just drop a new split and a new theme and stuff like that, and let that run for 6 months, and then you start the season at an appropriate time. So it just seems like a no-brainer that the time when all of these players return to the game, which is the start and end of the season, should not be over Thanksgiving and Christmas. It should be over a time period where people have a lot of time to play. And the main time for that, for most people who are playing who are in school, the college kids and the high school kids, would be in the middle of summer. So I don't know. That's just some food for thought. Obviously, Riot's got a lot of work to do, figuring these things out. They're a little bit behind the times. Servers dying in NA, it is what it is. We can take a look at the leaderboard. Let's see how we're doing here. Yeah, we're doing all right. I mean, do we have less players than Brazil? We're still beating out Brazil by a little bit. So, we're doing okay here in NA. We're holding on. We're trying to hold on. We probably won't have as many people return over Christmas to play before the end of the season. So, next year Brazil's probably looking to pass us, and we're probably looking to be wild card region, region number 6 or whatever. But it is what it is. We can only hope that when in 10 years from now, NA is a completely dead region with 100,000 players like Osh, and nobody plays the game anymore. We can only hope that Brazil Riot learns from our mistakes and doesn't screw up the game as bad as we did here in NA. But we'll last as long as we can. We'll keep at it. It's just such a mess. I don't know. Yeah, there'll probably be some other ones coming out. Me complain about some other things, but you get the idea. It's a disaster out here. It really is. So, with that being said, good luck in solo queue. You're gonna need it, especially if you dared to take more than a 1-day break. And have a wonderful day.